61 years ago, Italy suffered the worst man-made environmental disaster in its history. An inland tsunami that swept away entire villages and killed nearly 2,000 people. The Vajont Dam was the tallest in the world, but its unstable construction terrified those who lived in the valley below.
People could sense that something big was about to happen, because the ground was moving.
On October 9, 1963, their worst fears came true. Imagine a night where the ground trembles beneath your feet, where the shadows of towering mountains harbor a deadly secret waiting to erupt. This is the story of the Vajont Dam disaster, a man-made tragedy that combined human error with natural forces to unleash a disaster of immense magnitude. But why was the Vajont Dam conceived in the first place? Let's briefly return to the beginning. The idea for the dam emerged in the Roaring '20s, a time of burgeoning industrial ambitions in Italy. By harnessing the Vajont River, the dam was to provide essential hydroelectric power to fuel the growing demands of post-war Italy. Constructed by Sadi, the dam was an impressive feat, towering 262 meters high, making it one of the tallest dams of its era. The chosen site was beneath the unstable Monte Toc, a location known locally as the Walking Mountain due to its frequent landslides. Ignoring the geological complexities, construction pressed forward in the 1950s. However, the geology of Monte Toc was far from ideal. Engineers discovered a dangerous mix of limestone and clay layers that were prone to slipping under pressure, particularly after heavy rainfall. The geological factors were crucial to understanding the landslide's origins and devastating impact. The dam's walls were to hold back the waters of a man-made lake, providing energy and economic growth. However, even as the dam neared completion, nature's warning signs were abundant. Minor landslides and earth tremors shook the ground, yet these omens were dismissed by the dam's overseers, who were blinded by the allure of technological achievement. And so consequently, on the night of October 9, 1963, the lingering fears of those who had watched and worried about the dam turned into horrific reality. It was a clear evening, deceptively calm, when the mountain finally moved, not in whispers, but in a thunderous roar. At 10:39 p.m., a massive section of Monte Toc broke free, crashing down into the reservoir with a force that was recorded on seismographs as far away as Venice. Elda Dayan still remembers that day. The previous afternoon was a time of mounting anxiety for everyone in Longarone, where the town was lively, yet people knew trouble was coming. Elda said,
I spent my last summer in Longarone. It was the best summer of my life.
We were all young. I was 23.
I had my whole life in front of me, and we were happy, even if we didn't have a lot.
Within seconds, approximately 260 million cubic meters of rock and earth plunged into the lake, displacing an immense volume of water. The resulting wave was unimaginable, a monstrous surge of water rising up to 250 meters, nearly as tall as the dam itself. The engineering of the dam itself was not enough to contain the landslide's kinetic force, particularly with such a large volume of water displaced in a matter of seconds. The shock wave unleashed from the displaced mountain overwhelmed the structure. The wave plunged the dam's wall, unleashing a fury that no calculation had anticipated. How could these authorities have been so confident in this structure? It surged forward with relentless power, a wall of water that raced down the Vajont Valley towards the towns below. Longarone, a town of vibrant life and community, just moments before, bore the brunt of the onslaught. In a matter of minutes, it was erased from existence. Homes, lives, and memories swept away in a torrential flood that reshaped the landscape into a desolate plain of mud and debris. I remember a rumble that was getting louder, like that of a waterfall, Elda recalled of that terrifying night. A huge noise filled the valley, and my grandmother yelled at me to run away. Her grandmother's cry was drowned out by the roar of water, and Elda's home was washed away. She was left buried beneath the rubble, but her mattress protected her from flying debris. The disaster claimed nearly 2,000 lives, a devastating toll that could have been mitigated. In the aftermath, the dam stood largely intact, a silent testament to the misplaced confidence in human engineering. The air blast preceding the wave, driven by the immense speed and volume of water, had the destructive power of an explosion, stripping the earth and its inhabitants bare. Despite repeated geological surveys and warnings from local villagers, how could officials have allowed this to happen? Emergency response teams from across Italy rushed to the scene, but they were met with a landscape that challenged even the most seasoned rescuers. The flood had carried homes, trees, and even massive boulders for miles. Giuseppe and his sister were found half buried in debris, almost 600 meters from what was left of their home. He vividly remembers hearing distant voices and seeing the flicker of torchlights. "I cried for help because I couldn't move." Sadly, his parents were never found. Survivors were few, often found in shock, struggling to comprehend the loss of their families and homes. The Italian army, alongside numerous volunteers, began the grim task of recovering bodies, a process that lasted weeks and revealed the staggering human cost of the disaster. Nearly 2,000 lives lost. In the cold light of the following day, the magnitude of the disaster became painfully clear. The Vajont Dam disaster was not merely a natural event. It was a man-made catastrophe where warnings were ignored and safety was sacrificed for economic gain. On the contrary, the government, under intense public scrutiny, initially declared the event a natural disaster, an act of God, unavoidable and unforeseeable. However, as investigative journalists and concerned citizens delved deeper, the true nature of the tragedy unfolded. It became apparent that the disaster was not only predictable, but also preventable. Engineering assessments ignored, geological warnings dismissed. The disaster was a culmination of human error magnified by bureaucratic arrogance. Could this disaster have been averted if only the authorities had listened to those early warnings? The public outcry led to judicial inquiries and a slew of legal battles aimed at holding those responsible accountable. Trials ensued, focusing on the engineers and executives of SADE, the company behind the dam's construction. While some were eventually charged and found guilty of multiple charges, including manslaughter, many criticized the penalties as too lenient given the scale of the catastrophe. The trials themselves highlighted deep flaws in the regulatory oversight of large-scale engineering projects and led to widespread distrust in public authorities. In the broader societal context, the Vajont disaster became a catalyst for change in Italy and beyond. It prompted a re-evaluation of dam safety regulations globally, leading to more stringent standards and practices in the engineering community. The disaster also sparked debates about the ethics of technological progress and the moral responsibilities of engineers to prioritize safety over technological ambition or financial gain. Beyond the immediate physical and legal impacts, the Vajont Dam disaster left a deep cultural and psychological imprint on Italy. It became a symbol of failed modernity, a cautionary tale of the hubris of post-war industrialization. Memorials erected in the devastated towns and documentaries chronicling the disaster serve as poignant reminders of the night when nature's wrath met human folly. The site of the disaster itself has become a place of pilgrimage, attracting visitors from around the world who come to pay their respects and learn about the disaster. The dam still stands today, a stark, unused monument to disaster, partially open to the public as a somber museum of sorts. Educational programs and guided tours at the site emphasize the lessons learned from the disaster, stressing the importance of respecting geological realities and the limits of human engineering. It's better to confront reality every day, Elda reflected on the tragedy's impact. You need to make sense of it because it's that pain that lasts, not suffering that fades with time. It stays with us.
Personally, I have to say that inside I am not the same person. I am not the way I used to be. When I go to sleep at night, my mind always goes to the memory. Every night, the same thing.
If you found this video interesting, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.